everyone, and just want to say so many thanks to John O'Hara and Grace and Creative Coast Donegal for this incredible initiative. I mean, there isn't anything else like it in Ireland. And the more I've seen in the last couple of days, I mean, I'm just overwhelmed by the craft and skill and creativity here in the Northwest. So I'm coming from a perspective of a journalist who has, I might have different perspectives, but it's just, I give you a few thoughts and observations coming from my perspective today. So I'd like to start, the word sustainability is used it's used everywhere. I mean, I am bombarded every week with brands coming saying that they're sustainable. There is no way of knowing whether they are or not. However, here, because we know the provenance, sustainability means something, but generally it doesn't. And I'm going to talk a little bit about wool, because if there's any fiber that has the most impeccable eco-credentials, it's wool. It's biodegradable, renewable, recyclable. It ticks all the boxes. And unlike cotton, cotton drinks water. It takes 2,500 litres of water to make one pair of jeans. 2,500 litres of water. Polyester is degrading the planet. We all know that. It doesn't disintegrate. It's a terrible fibre. So raw wool, however, is considered by the EU as waste, like offal. And we have 3,500 sheep here in Ireland. And the farmers can't even cover the cost of shearing for what they get for the fleeces. It's scandalous. To me, it's scandalous. Because it's, in this day and age, you couldn't have a better fibre. So I think we've got to bear in mind that obviously pure Irish wool is still a very desirable objective, but there are still problems. And Pippa Hackett, who is a sheep farmer herself, commissioned this wool feasibility study. Well, and one of the things that it's 137 pages long, so I'm not recommending, you can read it if you like, but it really covers all the problems and the opportunities that wool has in this country. And I think one of the main conclusions is the setting up of a wool council, and that would be really, really important for the industry generally. But one thing caught my eye when I was reading. It talked about the sheep, and it said the sheep is an iconic emblem of the Irish tourism sector. There's an opportunity for wool-based tourism activity, an activity-based tournament, to bring incremental revenues for local communities. Which made me think, why not textile tours of Donegal? Why not unite tourism and textiles in Donegal? Nobody's doing it. So you have the Donegal Textile Tour. It could be sold to high net worth individuals in America, it could be sold to the general public, and it would give a sense of the background and the wonderful landscape from which Irish tweed and knitwear comes from. And it would certainly attract attention. And of course, Donegal is the only county, as we know, in Ireland connected to a textile. It has one of the most glorious coastlines in Western Europe, and Donegal tweed is its most famous product. So it brings me, of course, to this whole idea of PGI status for Donegal, which is going on at the moment. This is the feasibility study. Just come back to this. They're hoping to get this over the line in Europe within the next year and a half. It's taken a long time because Patrick Temple has been working on this since 2012 or 2013. And it's going to be a breakthrough because it will be the first time a non-agricultural product will get this protective status. And it will mean that no one can say that their Donegal tweed is Donegal tweed unless it is from Donegal. So it will stop imitations, and it also, I think the really most important thing about it is a huge marketing opportunity for Northwest Donegal tweed. I mentioned in the piece in the Irish Times today that in 1963, 6 eminent Scandinavians were brought to Ireland to do a report on our products and the marketability, whatever the word is, on it. And they spent 2 weeks traveling around the country, seeing knitwear, seeing glass, seeing all the rest of it. And their conclusion was the one pot of gold in Ireland was Donegal tweed. Protect it, they said. Set up a museum to it. It is one of the best things you have. However, in the 70s, with the advent of cheaper clothing and polyester, those recommendations were ignored. So now's the time to think about that again. I thought also what I might do here now is just show you how internationally tweed is seen by some of the big, powerful brands. That's Loro Piana, just taken over by Louis Vuitton. It's luxury. But it's just, I think, the angle of it, the model. I mean, I think it's a very beautiful coat. That's what you notice. That's, again, to me, it says comfort and coziness. And, I was kind of thinking, what's happened to sheepskin? Who's making sheepskin coats? Who's doing modern stuff with sheepskin? Isn't it time that we had some creativity there? This is interesting. Jacquemus, which is a very, very, very popular, very important French brand. This was their menswear debut in Marseille, all wool, because they believe that wool is a trans-seasonal, versatile fabric, could be used summer as well as winter. So you don't think of it as a winter fabric. I think you need to think about that as well. I think that's important. That's another Loro Piana. I think the styling is very important in that. That catches my eye. It's modern. That's Hermes. Look at the background, the model. It's so beautifully done. Catches my eye. How you make it, giving a tweed a sort of streetwear look. There's a company called the Cloth Surgeon in London, and they take old tweed suits and they make them into bomber jackets and streetwear and stuff and so on. I mean, recycling, repurposing, it's all there to be done. This is interesting. A woman called Mary Shaw, an Irish designer based in Paris, she was doing interior design, and at the time when minimalism was the kind of go-to for decor for the interiors, all sort of beige and cream and plain, she came in, rolled in with all this wonderful, colourful Donegal tweeds. And I mean, she created a sensation. She really did. There's a book called Decor by Mary Shaw. Last year, Pierre Frey, which is the big, storied French textile company, bought Sequana, which is her brand, and they have made the most wonderful video of it in Donegal. It's a French view of Donegal, of Irish tweed, and I think we'll be able to show it at the lunch break. It's wonderful. Collaboration. Now, Aislinn's going to talk about collaboration, and so I'm not going to say that much about it, but this is New Balance with our Harris tweed. And actually, Nike, I think, saved Harris tweed when things were pretty ropey for them with a huge order. And I think even Pennies, a couple of years ago, did a collaboration with Donegal tweed for menswear, a three-piece, it was a men's suit with a waistcoat, €90 or something. I mean, I wish they would do more of something. They don't have to be mass-produced, but it highlights our products. The other thing, I want also, because I wanted to talk about how imagery is very, very important in presenting your brand. So if you have an excellent product, everything else has to be excellent. The photography, the model, the way the model engages with you. And if you're selling online, remember, there's only one sense. You've got to look at it. You can't taste, feel it. So it's really important in terms of sales that looks attractive. And that can be a combination of a lifestyle, how it looks in a setting, landscape, and how it is just cut out, so you see the shape. So that's design. Of course, is absolutely the most paramount. That is absolutely important. So, collaboration, again, just, as I said, I'm not going to just two things in the sense of collaboration is really about the coastline, and that textiles needn't just be about the landscape, it can be about the coast. And surfing has become such a huge thing in Ireland now. We have the best surf spots in the world. And, you know, there's a very famous Californian brand called Stussy, and they collaborated with Harris Tweed, and they made, you know, clothes for their website. Not necessarily that you go into the sea in your Harris Tweed, but it just is part of their aesthetic, their dynamic. Now, this is an interesting one. Tom Kay is a surfer from Cornwall, and he started a brand called Finisterre with wetsuits and so on. But he found this flock of sheep called the Beaumont flock, and it was something to do with their wool that had extra breathability qualities. So he decided he would take the full clip, to take the fleeces from the flock, and just make a few jumpers for the website. And they were very expensive because it was an expensive and experimental, so like hotcakes. So he ordered more. And now they're winning awards. This is Leslie Pryor, whose flock is now huge. And that's one of the jumpers that they do. So you can think laterally sometimes, you know, not just because you're doing one thing, it doesn't mean that you can't sort of collaborate with somebody else doing something different. This is the Stussy Harris Tweed collaboration. You see, and again, good image, sort of laid back, Californian. And the other thing too, it struck me even watching that video just there, all these wonderful brands that are coming out here, I've never heard of them. Why aren't you telling us about them? Why aren't you sending me information about them, sending me wonderful images about them? Because what I think is Donegal has an awful lot going for it, and wonderful stories to tell, but please tell us more. And that, I think, is the Lanskeene. I think in terms of a modern image of tweed, Irish tweed, a great model, a great jacket, everything about that to me speaks. It speaks today, and something wonderful. And this is what you can do here in Donegal. So thank you very much for letting me have a bit of a rant here.